Behind closed doors, where no one is watching, a dangerous dance unfolds between the narcissist and the empath. On the surface, it looks like passion, connection, and even love, but underneath, there's a dark truth that few dare to talk about. It's a world where intimacy becomes a weapon, desire turns into a leash, and pleasure is often laced with control. The empath feels deeply, gives completely, and trusts without limits, and the narcissist knows exactly how to use that against them. From intense love bombing to sudden coldness, from nights that feel like magic to mornings that feel like a trap, the cycle repeats until the empath can't tell the difference between love and manipulation. But here's the shocking part. The very thing that makes the empath so vulnerable is also the key to breaking free. In this video, we're going to expose what really happens in the shadows, the hidden sexual truth that narcissists never want you to know. Watch until the end, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if this speaks to your soul, drop a comment below. I read every single one. And subscribe so you don't miss the next truth they hope you never hear. There's something magnetic about the way a narcissist's eyes lock onto an empath. It's not the kind of attraction that blooms from genuine love, respect, or shared values. It's a pull that runs deeper, darker, and more calculated. From the moment they meet, the narcissist senses something in the empath that most people never notice. An endless well of compassion, a willingness to listen without judgment, and an almost supernatural ability to feel the emotions of others. To the empath, this is simply who they are, their gift, their way of moving through the world. But to the narcissist, it's like discovering a hidden source of energy they can tap into. The empath radiates warmth and understanding, the very things the narcissist secretly craves but cannot create within themselves. They see in the empath a mirror that reflects the best version of who they wish they could be, and that reflection is intoxicating. But here's the truth. It's not love they are feeling. It's hunger. A hunger for the control, validation, and emotional supply the empath can provide without even realizing it. The empath's openness becomes an open door, and the narcissist steps through without hesitation, disguising their intentions behind charm, attentiveness, and an intensity that feels like destiny. In the early days, the narcissist is almost flawless. They seem deeply interested. They remember small details. They make the empath feel seen in a way no one else has. This isn't random kindness, it's strategy. They are studying their target, learning what the empath values, what wounds they carry, what dreams they hold, and most importantly, where their emotional vulnerabilities lie. Narcissists are experts in emotional mapping. They know exactly where to press, when to pull back, and how to create a rhythm that keeps the empath emotionally invested. The empath, being naturally trusting and often unwilling to see the worst in people, doesn't notice the subtle shift that begins to take place. What started as mutual connection slowly morphs into a one-way flow of energy, with the empath giving more and more, and the narcissist taking without ever truly giving back. The empath might feel occasional discomfort, little moments where something feels off, but the memory of those intense early days keeps them holding on. And that's exactly what the narcissist wants. This attraction is not about two souls meeting in harmony. It's about one soul finding a host. The narcissist feeds off the empath's light, their patience, and their ability to forgive almost anything in the name of love. They push boundaries just to see how far the empath will bend, and each time the empath stays, the narcissist's sense of power grows. Over time, the empath may begin to feel drained without understanding why, as if some invisible cord is pulling the life out of them. They'll blame themselves, thinking they aren't doing enough, loving enough, or being enough to make the relationship work. But the truth is, the attraction was never about love in the first place. It was about access. Access to someone who would pour out their energy without demanding the same in return. Access to someone who would overlook flaws, excuse hurtful behavior, and remain loyal even when loyalty wasn't deserved. The narcissist is drawn to the empath's empathy the way a thief is drawn to an unlocked door. They see it as an opportunity, a resource to exploit, a well that never runs dry. At least, Not until the empath begins to see the pattern for what it truly is. And that's the tragedy of this unseen attraction. While the empath enters with the hope of building something real, the narcissist enters with the intent to consume. They want the feelings without the responsibility, the closeness without the vulnerability, the appearance of love without the actual work of love. And yet, this very dynamic holds paradox. Because even though the narcissist is drawn to the empath's light for selfish reasons, it's that same light that holds the potential to expose them. The more the empath learns about their own worth, the harder it becomes for the narcissist to keep control. The more the empath sees that the attraction was rooted in hunger, not love, the more they begin to understand that they were chosen not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to give without expecting anything in return. Once this realization sets in, the empath can begin to reclaim their power, not by closing their heart, but by guarding it. They learn that love must be mutual to be healthy, that compassion must have boundaries, and that not everyone who is drawn to their light comes with good intentions. And when that awareness settles deep into the empath's bones, the very magnetism that once pulled the narcissist in loses its grip. The empath still shines, but now their light is protected, not hidden, but no longer available for those who only seek to take. In the end, the unseen attraction between a narcissist and an empath isn't a mystery of fate. It's a meeting of need and opportunity, one driven by imbalance and sustained by the empath's willingness to give. Understanding this truth doesn't just break the spell, it transforms it, turning what was once a silent trap into a clear choice. And when the empath chooses themselves, the game ends. The seduction of a narcissist is not random, and it's certainly not accidental. It is a carefully crafted performance, a psychological blueprint designed to bypass logic and go straight for the heart. When they spot an empath, the process begins almost instantly. They know they can't simply walk up and demand affection. They must create a connection so powerful that the empath believes it's destiny. This is where their sexual charm, their intensity, and their uncanny ability to mimic soulmate energy come into play. At first, it feels like the two of you are in your own private universe. Every look lingers, every word feels perfectly timed, and the chemistry is so overwhelming it's almost disorienting. The narcissist uses physical attraction not just as a spark, but as a hook, blending emotional intimacy with sensual energy so seamlessly that the empath feels a deep, unshakable bond forming. They may touch your hand in a way that feels electric, hold your gaze as if they are reading your soul, or share deeply personal stories that make you believe you're the only person they've ever trusted. This is not vulnerability, it's calculated disclosure, designed to make you open up in return. And once you do, they know they've got you. They flood your life with attention, texts, late-night conversations, and spontaneous gestures that make you feel like you've finally found the person who truly understands you. For the empath, whose nature is to connect deeply and wholeheartedly, this is intoxicating. They don't just feel attracted, they feel chosen. And that feeling of being chosen by someone so intense, so passionate, is powerful enough to override the small warnings their intuition might be whispering. The narcissist knows this, which is why they keep the pace fast. They'll say things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone," or "It's like we were meant to find each other," planting the seed of inevitability. They create an emotional high, a rush of dopamine and oxytocin, until the empath's body and brain are associating them with euphoria. This is the first stage of the bond, the tether that will later hold the empath in place even when the relationship turns cold. The sexual connection is also part of the blueprint. They know how to mirror the empath's desires, paying close attention to what makes them feel valued and desired. It's not about genuine intimacy. It's about memorizing the script that makes the empath feel safe enough to let their guard down. And once the guard is down, the narcissist can begin weaving the web. This is why it feels so intense in the beginning. They are reflecting back an image of the perfect partner, tailor-made from everything they've learned about you. The empath believes they're experiencing rare, once-in-a-lifetime chemistry, but in truth, they are being drawn into a pattern that the narcissist has repeated before with others. What makes this so dangerous is that the narcissist never lets the empath fully catch their breath. If they sense hesitation, they turn the charm up higher, pulling you into passionate moments, deep conversations, or spontaneous adventures to drown out any doubts. They might show up unexpectedly with flowers, whisk you away for a weekend, or spend hours tangled up in intimacy that feels like pure connection, but is actually conditioning. This conditioning trains the empath to crave the highs so much that they'll tolerate the lows when they come. The blueprint is not about seduction for pleasure. It's about seduction for possession. The narcissist's goal is not to love the empath, but to own their emotional center, to become the axis around which their feelings spin. And because the empath is driven by love, they will invest deeply, often without realizing how quickly their life has begun to revolve around this person. The soulmate energy the narcissist projects is simply a mirror, reflecting the empath's own hopes, desires, and fantasies back to them. It's intoxicating because it feels so familiar. It feels like home. But it is not home. It's a carefully staged illusion. This is why, when the first cracks appear, a sudden withdrawal of attention, a subtle criticism, a moment of emotional distance, the empath doesn't run. Instead, they cling harder, desperate to get back to the magic of the beginning. The narcissist counts on this. They know that once you've tasted the intensity they offered, you'll chase it, even when they start replacing warmth with coldness. This is the true genius of the seduction blueprint. It creates a longing so deep that the empath will begin to work for the very connection that was given freely in the beginning. And in that moment, the balance of power shifts. The empath goes from being pursued to being the pursuer, from receiving love to trying to earn it. The narcissist, having secured their place in the empath's mind and body, now has what they wanted all along: control. The danger is not in the beauty of the beginning. It's in believing that the beginning was real. Once the empath understands that the passion, the charm, and the soulmate energy were tools rather than truths, the illusion starts to crumble. But until that realization comes, the seduction blueprint remains one of the narcissist's most powerful weapons, capable of binding even the strongest empath into a cycle they never saw coming. In the early stages of a relationship with a narcissist, the bedroom becomes a stage, and you are the star of the most intoxicating performance you've ever experienced. Every touch feels electric. Every kiss is charged with an urgency that makes you believe this is something rare, something almost sacred. The narcissist moves with a confidence that convinces you they know exactly how to love you, exactly how to please you, exactly how to make you feel desired in ways you didn't know were possible. It's not just physical, it's emotional theater. They look at you like you're the only person in the world who matters, whisper words that feel like promises, and create moments so intense you can't help but feel you've stumbled into a once-in-a-lifetime connection. But here's the truth they'll never admit. This overwhelming passion is not an accident, and it's not purely about attraction. It's a calculated psychological trap known as love bombing, and in the bedroom, it becomes one of their most powerful tools for control. You see, the narcissist understands something most people don't think about. Physical intimacy is one of the fastest ways to forge a deep emotional bond. When two people connect physically, especially in an intense and consistent way, the brain releases chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine, binding them together and creating feelings of attachment, trust, and euphoria. The narcissist weaponizes this biological truth. They flood the relationship with sexual energy, not because they are overflowing with love, but because they know it will make you feel safe, chosen, and addicted to their presence. In those early weeks or months, they may be endlessly affectionate, initiating closeness at every opportunity, praising your body, your beauty, your spirit. They'll make you feel like you've awakened something in them no one else ever has, as if you've unlocked a hidden part of their soul. They'll talk about how rare this connection is, how you must have been destined to find each other, and how they've never felt such passion with anyone before. And because the empath thrives on deep emotional connection, this is irresistible. You believe the bedroom is where you truly meet, where walls come down, where love is spoken without words. But behind the scenes, The narcissist is setting the stage for dependency. By flooding you with physical affection early on, they create an emotional high so powerful that it becomes your new normal. You begin to crave it, not just because of the pleasure, but because of the meaning you've attached to it. To you, it's proof of love. To them, it's proof they've secured you. And here's where the trap tightens. Once the narcissist feels confident they've captured your heart and your trust, the love bombing begins to fade. They may pull away subtly at first, a missed kiss here, a lack of enthusiasm there, and you'll feel the shift immediately. That sudden absence creates anxiety, and instead of questioning them, you question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I push too hard? Am I not as desirable anymore? This is exactly the reaction they want. You see, when they take the high away, you start chasing it. You try harder to please them, to reignite the passion, to earn back what felt so natural in the beginning. Without realizing it, you begin working for the connection instead of simply enjoying it. This shift marks the beginning of the control phase. Now, the narcissist doesn't have to shower you with constant passion. They can offer it in doses, using it as a reward when you're compliant or when they need to pull you back in after conflict. The bedroom becomes less about mutual intimacy and more about maintaining their position of power. For the empath, who entered the relationship with an open heart, this is deeply confusing. The contrast between the early magic and the new coldness is jarring, but the memory of those first weeks or months keeps you holding on. You tell yourself, it can be like that again if I just try harder. And that's the cruel genius of love bombing in the bedroom. It plants a memory so intoxicating that you'll overlook present-day pain just to feel it again. But the truth is, the beginning wasn't the relationship, it was the hook. A carefully orchestrated period designed to disarm you, bond you, and make you believe that what you were experiencing was pure love. It wasn't. It was conditioning. And the sooner you see that, the sooner you can step back and ask the most important question. If the passion was real, why did it have an expiration date? Love bombing in the bedroom works because it feels real. It feels rare. It feels like the very thing you've been waiting for. But real love doesn't require manipulation, and real intimacy doesn't come with strings attached. When you look closely, you'll see that the early passion was never about building a lasting connection. It was about securing control. And once you see that clearly, the magic loses its power, and you can begin to reclaim not just your body, but your heart and mind as well. Control through intimacy is one of the most subtle yet devastating tactics a narcissist uses, and it works because it doesn't feel like control at first. In the beginning, physical closeness is wrapped in warmth, passion, and the illusion of deep emotional connection. The narcissist learns your preferences, your desires, and the little things that make you feel loved, and they give them to you generously, almost excessively. This generosity isn't rooted in genuine care. It's part of a long game. You see, for the empath, intimacy is a natural expression of love and trust. It's a place where walls come down, where both people feel safe to be their truest selves. The narcissist knows this, and they exploit it. They understand that once you feel this level of closeness with them, you'll associate them with comfort, safety, and belonging. They begin to weave themselves into the very core of your emotional world, so that the thought of losing them feels almost unbearable. At first, they give freely, but over time, subtle changes begin. That affection that once felt abundant now comes in carefully measured doses. A kiss that used to linger might now be quick and distracted. A hug that once held warmth might now feel cold and obligatory. The change is small enough that you can't point to a single moment where it shifted. But you feel it in your bones. Something is different. And this is exactly the point. The narcissist has begun to use intimacy not as a shared joy, but as currency. They give it when they want to reward you, and they withhold it when they want to punish you, creating an unspoken message. Your access to closeness depends on your compliance. The empath, desperate to restore the connection, often responds by working harder, being more accommodating, even suppressing their own needs to avoid conflict. Without realizing it, the balance of power has shifted. In the beginning, intimacy was mutual, a shared space of vulnerability. Now, it's a lever the narcissist pulls to get what they want. This is where emotional leverage takes root. By controlling when and how intimacy happens, they can manipulate your mood, your self-esteem, and even your sense of worth. If you challenge them, they may grow distant, pulling away physically until you feel the ache of separation. If you comply, they reward you with a return to the closeness you've been missing, making you feel like things are good again. It's a cycle of withdrawal and reward, designed to keep you in a constant state of emotional pursuit. Over time, this pattern rewires your brain. You begin to associate intimacy not just with love, but with relief from anxiety, doubt, and the ache of feeling unwanted. The danger here is that relief is addictive. You are no longer seeking intimacy for joy. You're seeking it to end the discomfort of its absence. This is how the narcissist locks you into place. They've created a system where you will tolerate emotional neglect, manipulation, and even mistreatment just to regain the closeness they can turn on and off at will. For the empath, this is deeply confusing, because the memory of the early passion is still alive. They believe if they just love enough, give enough, or change enough, they can get back to what they had at the start. But the truth is, the early stage was not a natural beginning. It was the setup. The narcissist never intended to keep intimacy abundant. They intended to make it scarce, because scarcity makes people cling. This is why the power dynamic shifts so dramatically. In the early days, you felt chosen, cherished, and desired. Now, you feel like you're auditioning to earn what was once freely given. And because the narcissist controls the audition process, they control you. This isn't about mutual connection anymore. It's about dominance disguised as love. But there's one thing the narcissist doesn't count on. Over time, the empath begins to notice the pattern. They start to see that the withholding isn't random, that it always follows moments when they assert themselves or express needs that challenge the narcissist's control. This awareness is the first crack in the power structure. When the empath realizes that their worth is not measured by how much intimacy they receive, but by their own inherent value, the game starts to shift. Because the truth is, intimacy should never be a tool for control. It should never be something dangled like a prize for good behavior or withdrawn as punishment for stepping out of line. Genuine closeness is built on mutual respect, trust, and equality, not on fear of loss or constant emotional bargaining. Once the empath understands this, they begin to take their power back. They start to see that the connection they've been fighting for was never truly mutual, and that they deserve intimacy that isn't conditional. And when they reach that point, the narcissist's greatest weapon, their control through intimacy, begins to lose its grip. Beneath the charm, the passion, and the carefully crafted connection lies the narcissist's true obsession, not with love, not even with intimacy, but with power. This is their hidden fetish, the unspoken thrill they get from dominating an empath's body, mind, and emotions all at once. To the outside world, it may look like they are simply in a relationship, but behind closed doors, every interaction is part of a silent contest they must win. The narcissist doesn't just want access to you. They want ownership. They want to feel that your desires bend to their will, that your emotions rise and fall in response to their actions, and that your body reacts when and how they decide. The empath, with their deep capacity for love and trust, becomes the perfect canvas for this dominance to play out. At first, it's disguised as passion. The narcissist might take the lead in ways that feel exciting, protective, even intoxicating. But over time, the underlying pattern emerges. Their pleasure comes as much from control as it does from connection. It's not just about you wanting them. It's about you needing them, about your world subtly rearranging itself around their presence. They savor the moments when they can spark desire in you at will, or withhold it and watch you question yourself. They enjoy seeing you second-guess your feelings, your boundaries, and even your instincts, because it reinforces the idea that they are the one who decides what is real between you. This power dynamic extends far beyond the bedroom. They shape the way you think about them, the way you think about yourself, even the way you think about love. They plant doubts, then position themselves as the only one who can soothe them. They create emotional highs so intense that the lows feel unbearable, and then make themselves the only source of relief. In this way, your dependence deepens, and their control grows. This is where the fetish becomes most dangerous. The narcissist doesn't just crave dominance in moments of passion. They crave it in the quiet spaces of your mind, in the choices you make when they are not even around. They want you to filter your actions, your words, and even your thoughts through the question, how will they react? The thrill for them is knowing they have that much influence over you. And because the empath often mistakes this intensity for deep love, they can confuse control with connection, power with passion. The narcissist counts on this confusion. It allows them to push boundaries slowly, normalizing behaviors that once would have felt invasive or even violating. They may pressure you into things you're not entirely comfortable with, frame your hesitations as signs you don't trust them, or use your love for them as leverage to get what they want. And when you give in, they file it away as another victory, another piece of proof that they hold the reins. For them, this is more than satisfaction, it's validation. It feeds the core belief that they are special, superior, untouchable. The empath's surrender becomes the narcissist's trophy, displayed not to others, but in the private theater of their own ego. And yet, here's the most chilling part. This fetish for power is never truly satisfied. The more control they have, the more they want. What once thrilled them becomes normal, and they begin seeking new ways to assert dominance, sharper words, deeper manipulations, riskier games. This endless escalation keeps the empath off balance, always adjusting, always trying to keep up with shifting rules. But every step deeper into this dynamic takes the empath further from themselves. The person who once felt free, confident, and in control of their own life now finds their self-worth tangled in the narcissist's approval. And that's the ultimate victory for the narcissist, not just owning moments, but owning the person. Yet even in this darkest stage, there's a truth that holds power for the empath. Dominance only works as long as it's accepted. The moment the empath begins to see the pattern for what it is, the spell starts to break. The moment they realize that love should never feel like submission, that desire should never require the surrender of one's identity, the narcissist's fetish loses its fuel. Because in the end, control over another human being is not real strength. It's dependence disguised as power. And the day the empath walks away, the narcissist is left not with a partner to dominate, but with the emptiness they were trying to fill in the first place. Withholding as punishment is one of the most emotionally devastating tools in a narcissist's arsenal, and it often works so quietly, so subtly, that the empath doesn't even realize it's happening until they are already caught in its grip. At first, the narcissist may flood the relationship with affection, touch, and intimacy. Not just physical closeness, but the kind of connection that feels rare and electric, the kind that makes the empath believe they've finally found someone who sees them, who values them, who wants to be near them. This early stage is intoxicating, and it sets the stage for the power dynamic to shift later. Once the empath is deeply invested and emotionally bonded, the narcissist begins to withhold. It's not always sudden. Sometimes it starts with subtle excuses. They are tired, they are stressed, they are not in the mood. Other times, it's abrupt and jarring, a cold wall where warmth used to be. Either way, the change is deeply felt by the empath, who starts questioning themselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I not attractive enough anymore? Have I upset them without realizing it? And that's exactly the point. The narcissist uses this sudden absence of intimacy not as a reflection of reality, but as a means to provoke insecurity, self-doubt, and a desperate desire to fix whatever has gone wrong. In truth, nothing needs fixing. The withdrawal is intentional. It's a way to make the empath feel that closeness is a privilege they must earn rather than a mutual expression of love. Over time, the empath begins to chase the narcissist's affection, bending over backwards to please them, to apologize for imagined offenses, to meet impossible expectations, all in the hope of earning back their closeness. This creates a cruel cycle. The more the narcissist withholds, the more power they have, because they've conditioned the empath to equate intimacy with validation and safety. The empath starts living in a constant state of emotional hunger, where even the smallest gesture of touch or affection feels like a feast, and this scarcity keeps them hooked. This tactic is especially damaging because it strikes at the core of the empath's identity. Empaths tend to see love as an ongoing act of care and connection, so when that connection is deliberately cut off, it feels like a rejection not just of their relationship, but of their worth as a person. And yet, instead of walking away, they often cling tighter, hoping to prove themselves worthy again. The narcissist, of course, understands this dynamic all too well. They know that withholding what once felt abundant creates confusion, and confusion makes control easier. It's not about lack of desire on their part. It's about using desire as leverage. They want the empath to feel off balance, to constantly question where they stand, because that uncertainty makes the empath more malleable, more likely to comply, more willing to tolerate behaviors they would otherwise reject. This is why withholding as punishment can be more corrosive than outright conflict. Arguments can be addressed, apologies made, issues resolved. But silence, absence, and the removal of affection create an emotional vacuum that the empath instinctively tries to fill, and that's when they lose sight of their own needs. The damage compounds over time, as the empath's self-esteem erodes and their sense of normal becomes warped. They start to believe that love is supposed to be unpredictable, that it's normal to feel anxious about whether your partner will touch you, hold you, or even look at you warmly. The tragedy is that many empaths don't realize this is abuse, because it doesn't always come with raised voices or obvious cruelty. It's subtle, it's quiet, and it hides behind plausible excuses: work stress, illness, being tired. But the intent is always the same: to use deprivation as a way to dominate. Breaking free from this cycle requires a painful moment of clarity, when the empath sees that love should never be something you have to beg for, that intimacy should not be a reward for good behavior, and that real connection is built on mutual care, not manipulation. The journey out is not easy, because the narcissist has spent so much time conditioning them to believe that the absence of affection is their fault. But once the empath starts to reclaim their self-worth, they begin to see the pattern for what it is, not a reflection of their inadequacy, but a reflection of the narcissist's need for control. And with that understanding comes the power to walk away, to protect their spirit from further harm, and to demand the kind of love that is freely given, not dangled like bait. Gaslighting in the bedroom is one of the most insidious tools a narcissist can use against an empath, because it doesn't just target the mind. It strikes directly at the core of intimacy, trust, and self-worth. It's not always obvious in the beginning. At first, the empath might simply feel off, unsure why moments that are supposed to feel safe and connected instead leave them unsettled. The narcissist, skilled in emotional manipulation, begins by subtly rewriting the story of what's happening between them. If the empath expresses discomfort, a boundary, or a need, it's immediately reframed as oversensitivity, lack of passion, or even selfishness. If the empath says something didn't feel right, the narcissist might respond with a scoff, an eye roll, or a casual dismissal. You're imagining things. That's not what happened, or you're just being dramatic. Over time, these small moments chip away at the empath's confidence in their own perceptions. The narcissist creates a warped reality where their own behavior is always justified and the empath's feelings are always questioned. They may deny crossing boundaries entirely, even when it's clear they did, or they may twist events so the empath ends up apologizing for things they never did wrong. This leaves the empath questioning not only what happened, but whether their emotional responses are valid at all. Gaslighting in this context isn't just about denying facts. It's about reshaping the empath's understanding of their own needs. The narcissist may convince them that their boundaries are too rigid, that their desires are unrealistic, or that their discomfort is simply a sign of their own emotional flaws. Sometimes it's done through subtle guilt, implying that if the empath really loved them, they wouldn't complain, they'd be more easygoing or open-minded. Other times it's more overt, accusing the empath of being cold, ungrateful, or prudish, planting the seed that the problem isn't the narcissist's behavior, but the empath's inability to handle intimacy. The end result is devastating. The empath begins to second-guess themselves in real time, hesitating to speak up, wondering if maybe they are overreacting. Their natural intuition, one of their greatest strengths, gets muffled under the constant pressure to doubt themselves. The narcissist's control deepens, because now they don't even have to silence the empath silences themselves. This psychological fog can make the empath stay far longer than they should, hoping that if they can just be less sensitive or more understanding, things will improve. But of course, the narcissist's goal is never mutual healing or connection. It's to maintain dominance, to keep the empath questioning their reality so they remain easy to control. The cruelty of gaslighting in the bedroom is that it turns what should be a space of vulnerability and safety into a mental battleground. The empath is left feeling emotionally alone, even in moments of physical closeness. And because the manipulation is tied to intimacy, the damage runs deeper, intertwining confusion with feelings of love, longing, and shame. Breaking free from this requires the empath to reclaim their inner voice, to start trusting their gut again, and to recognize that any partner who makes them doubt their right to feel safe, respected, and heard is not a partner at all, but a manipulator who's been using love's most sacred space as a weapon. They don't just take your body, they take your mind. Narcissists have a way of weaving intimacy into a dangerous web of dependency, a cycle that hooks an empath so deeply it feels impossible to escape. At first, it's intoxicating. The connection feels electric, magnetic, almost otherworldly. Every touch, every look, every moment together seems heightened, as if you're living inside a dream. The narcissist becomes the source of that high, and they know it. They build you up, flood you with passion and attention, then suddenly pull it all away. The withdrawal is excruciating. You find yourself craving them like a drug, needing that next rush of closeness to feel whole again. This is not love. This is the trauma bonding cycle, a pattern of emotional highs and lows that rewires your brain, making you associate pleasure with the very person causing you pain. The narcissist becomes both the wound and the remedy, and you begin to believe you can't survive without them. In reality, this is calculated control. They condition you to depend on them for your emotional and physical fulfillment, while keeping you on edge, never quite secure. You start doubting your ability to find that same connection anywhere else, because they've made you believe it's rare, special, even sacred. The truth is, they've engineered the entire experience to keep you addicted. Each time they give you a taste of that intensity, it cements the bond. And each time they take it away, your desperation grows. It's not just about missing them. It's about needing the relief from the ache they themselves created. Breaking free means enduring the withdrawal, resisting the urge to chase that next high, and seeing the cycle for what it truly is, manipulation disguised as passion. Until you step back, you won't realize that what felt like once-in-a-lifetime love was actually a cage, and every moment of connection was just another lock on the door. Emotional exploitation under the sheets is one of the most insidious forms of abuse, because it hides behind what is supposed to be the most intimate and safe connection between two people. In a healthy relationship, physical intimacy is born from mutual trust, respect, and a genuine desire to nurture each other emotionally and physically. But with a narcissist, that trust and vulnerability become weapons. The very moments where an empath lets their guard down, where they open their heart, soul, and body in complete surrender, are turned into opportunities for dominance, manipulation, and control. It's not just about sex. It's about the power it gives them over your emotions. They feed off the knowledge that you've entrusted them with your deepest self, and rather than protect that gift, they exploit it for ego supply. They learn what touches you, what melts you, what makes you feel alive, and then they decide when to give it, when to withhold it, and how to use it to keep you hooked. Every kiss, every caress, every whispered word can be loaded with hidden intention, not to connect but to condition you, training you to respond in ways that feed their sense of superiority. For the empath, the damage runs deep because they approach intimacy with an open heart. They don't just share their body, they share their emotions, their fears, their hopes, and the most fragile parts of their identity. This depth of connection creates a level of trust where they feel safe to be completely themselves. The narcissist, however, sees this openness not as something to cherish, but as a blueprint for control. They start to map out the empath's emotional triggers, discovering exactly how to make them feel desired, and just as easily, how to make them feel rejected. They turn the bed into a stage for power plays, giving intense passion one day, followed by cold indifference the next. This unpredictability keeps the empath off balance, always trying to figure out what went wrong or how to get the warmth back. And because the good moments feel so intoxicating, the bad ones become even more painful, reinforcing a toxic cycle of craving and withdrawal. In this way, intimacy becomes less about love and more about dominance. The narcissist uses it to reinforce the idea that they are the one in control of your emotional highs and lows. They know that when they pull away, you'll feel not only lonely but also unworthy, questioning what you did wrong. When they return that affection, it feels like a gift, like a reward you had to earn. Over time, this rewires the empath's perception of love. Instead of expecting consistency and care, they start to believe that love is something unstable, conditional, and entirely dependent on the narcissist's mood. This mental conditioning is what makes leaving so difficult. Even when the empath can see the emotional manipulation, the body still remembers the rare moments of closeness, the ones that felt like pure magic. The narcissist counts on this, because they know those memories will keep you tied to them even when the reality is far from loving. What makes this form of exploitation so damaging is that it attacks the very core of a person's self-worth. Sexual intimacy is supposed to affirm your value, not make you question it. But when a narcissist is in control, they twist the meaning of these moments until the empath no longer knows if they are desirable because of who they are or because they've played by the narcissist's unspoken rules. The empath starts to second-guess their own needs, wondering if they are being too demanding or too sensitive for wanting consistent love and affection. This self-doubt is exactly what the narcissist wants, because it makes the empath more compliant, more willing to accept crumbs of affection in exchange for loyalty. The worst part is that the empath may even start to believe the narcissist's version of reality, that they are lucky to receive any affection at all, that they are the problem, that they should work harder to please them. Over time, the emotional cost becomes immense. The empath's sense of self is eroded, replaced by a constant undercurrent of anxiety and longing. They may feel trapped between two realities, the painful truth of how they are being treated and the intoxicating memories of when things felt perfect. This push and pull creates what's known as a trauma bond, a deep emotional attachment formed through cycles of abuse and reward. And because sexual intimacy can trigger powerful emotional and chemical responses in the brain, breaking free from this bond feels like breaking an addiction. The empath might leave physically but still feel tethered emotionally, haunted by memories that were carefully engineered by the narcissist to keep them hooked. Escaping this kind of exploitation requires more than just leaving the relationship. It requires reclaiming your sense of worth and rewriting what intimacy means to you. It means understanding that the moments of connection you experienced were not proof of unconditional love, but tools of control in the hands of someone who saw your vulnerability as an opportunity rather than a responsibility. It's a quiet shift at first. Something subtle, almost imperceptible, begins to stir within the empath. For so long, they've been tangled in a web of charm, affection, and passion that felt intoxicating on the surface but suffocating underneath. The narcissist's sexual manipulation had been wrapped so tightly around them that desire became confusion, intimacy became obligation, and love became a performance designed to keep them under control. The empath, by nature, had given themselves wholly, body, mind, and heart, believing that connection meant sacrifice. But slowly, the haze starts to lift. Patterns emerge. The same seduction that once felt like love now feels like a tool. The same intimacy that once promised closeness now feels like a trap. They begin to notice the games, the way the narcissist offers affection only when it benefits them, the way their needs and comfort are consistently ignored, the way passion is used like a leash to pull them back whenever they try to create distance. It's in the subtle remarks that erode their confidence, in the sudden coldness that leaves them desperate to regain warmth, in the way every act of love seems to come with an unspoken condition. The empath's mind, once clouded by the belief that this was real love, begins to question, why does intimacy always leave me feeling smaller instead of whole? The breaking point doesn't arrive with fireworks or drama. It comes quietly, in a moment of deep clarity. Maybe it's after yet another encounter that leaves them emotionally drained. Maybe it's during a night when they lie awake, replaying conversations in their head, realizing that their feelings have been secondary all along. Or maybe it's in the middle of what should be a moment of closeness, when they suddenly feel more alone than they've ever felt before. The truth hits them hard. This isn't intimacy. It's control. It's not love. It's possession. There comes a moment in an empath's journey when the fog begins to lift, and for the first time in what feels like forever, they can breathe without the weight of someone else's shadow pressing down on them. The liberation of the empath is not a sudden burst of freedom. It is a slow, deliberate awakening that comes after nights of silent tears, countless moments of self-doubt, and the endless tug-of-war between heart and mind. It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, with the realization that the love they have been giving has been taken, twisted, and drained to feed someone else's hunger for control. This awareness can be both painful and empowering, because with it comes the undeniable truth. They are not broken, they are not too much, and they are not unworthy. They have simply been caught in a cycle designed to exploit their very nature. And now, they are learning how to break it. Healing starts with self-awareness, the deep, unflinching kind that forces them to look not only at the wounds inflicted but also at the patterns that allowed those wounds to keep forming. This is not about blaming themselves, but about understanding the mechanics of manipulation, the gaslighting that made them question their reality, the silent treatments that starved them of affection, the conditional love that kept them forever reaching for approval. An empath learns to see these tactics for what they truly are, tools of control. And once they see them clearly, the spell begins to shatter. They start reclaiming their mind first, because that's where the war was fought all along. They begin to question every whispered insult disguised as a joke, every sudden withdrawal of warmth, every time they were made to feel they had to earn love. The more they question, the more they realize that love should never have felt like this. The next step is reclaiming their body and spirit. For an empath, their body has often been a battleground, a place where affection was both given and weaponized, where intimacy was used as currency or punishment. Healing means no longer allowing their worth to be measured in physical compliance or emotional surrender. It means setting boundaries so clear they are unshakable, learning to say no without guilt, and recognizing that their energy is a sacred resource, not an endless supply to be drained at will. They start surrounding themselves with people who pour into them as much as they pour out, creating an environment where mutual respect replaces silent resentment. The transformation is rarely a smooth path. It comes with moments of doubt, nights when the old loneliness creeps back in, and the ghost of their past abuser's voice tries to convince them they've made a mistake. But the empath learns to meet these moments with compassion for themselves. They learn to anchor into the truth that healing is not linear. It's a series of small victories, like the first time they delete a manipulative text without responding, or the first time they walk away from someone who tries to guilt them into staying. Every one of these moments builds a new foundation inside them, brick by brick, until one day they realize they are no longer standing in the ruins of their past. They are standing in the home they've built within themselves. And then comes the most powerful part of liberation, turning pain into strength. An empath's sensitivity, once a source of vulnerability, becomes their compass. They know now how to read people, not from a place of fear, but from a place of clarity. They no longer mistake chaos for passion, nor silence for peace. They can love without losing themselves, care without being consumed, and give without expecting it to be their own undoing. Their boundaries become not walls to keep love out, but gates that ensure only those with respect and genuine intention may enter.